cinema professor is doing here on a panel like this one. I'll tell you right away, starting from January 25th, this is the beginning of the Egyptian Revolution, and I'm Canadian Egyptian. I became an activist all of a sudden, and this is how I am. This is what I'm doing for 10 months now. And as an activist, I created an initiative in Egypt and a website called Dawla Madaniyya, and in Egyptian and in Arabic, this word here means civil state. And as a francophone, I would translate it by adding the idea of laïcité as well. So secular state, civil state, and so on. I created this website from here, from Canada, from my own pocket money, and it doesn't cost that much. So don't be afraid of, like, wow, how much did I put in that? Really nothing, peanuts compared to what we achieved so far. So over the 10 months we are on the 25th of November today, 25th of January, for 10 months now, this website and the initiative I launched in Egypt are working towards Dawla Madaniyya, or towards the idea of defending secularism in Egypt. So why is that? From the very beginning of the revolution, Mubarak, when he was still president of Egypt, created what he called a dialogue commission. And in this dialogue commission, he invited the Muslim Brothers. And the Muslim Brothers, as you know, were considered as an underground group until recently. When they were invited to this dialogue commission, the decision was made that they will contribute as a political group to the establishment of some sort of compromise under Mubarak with the street. So they started participating in the revolution when Mubarak was still there in the streets, but as also somehow allies of the corrupted regime. And from that moment on, I thought we should start working on secularization and on calling for secular state and so on. I felt that this revolution might be in great danger because of this sort of situation where you can see the corrupted regime working for the first time openly with a group which was supposed to be underground. And then what we have seen later, starting from February 11th when Mubarak stepped down, up till today, is also some sort of dividing tasks or sharing powers and so on with the military council, which is also ruling the country today. So military council and Muslim Brothers, for me, as an intellectual, as a university professor, as somebody who is teaching to my students critical thinking, means what? Means that this sort of coalition between the military and the religious powers in Egypt, Al-Azhar is also playing a very important role, and Al-Azhar is the official institution in Egypt regarding all what's official Islam, right? So those forms of alliances that kept working beneath the revolution, with the revolution sometimes, but many, many other times against the revolution in Egypt, made me feel that there is a huge danger here. I'm not saying that I was one of those who wrote several times in Egyptian newspapers that the Muslim Brothers as a group should not be underground. They should be granted the right to become a political party. They have a voice, they have a place in society. They were founded in the 1920s. And up till today, they are the most well-organized group in Egypt. So they have to be granted the right to become a political party. And they created actually Al-Hurriya wal-Adala, which is one of the most powerful parties today. In 2 days, we are going to start the parliamentary elections, and everybody in the streets in Egypt expects that the Muslim Brothers will probably win 40 to 45% of the seats in the parliament. So I have no problem with this. This is democracy, we should accept it. But now, what about the 60 other percent of the parliament? If we say that the Muslim Brothers might win up to 40%, what about the 60%? And in the 60%, this is where I'm working as a as an activist, but it's even a big word because I'm just started, right? Only with my passion and with this conviction that we need to secularize the country. Unfortunately, the term itself, Dawla Madaniyya, in Egypt has a very bad reputation for many reasons, one of which is that the former regime, the former corrupted regime, repressive regime, and so on, was also portraying itself as a secular state. And therefore, whenever you talk about secularism, it's actually also a danger because many people would look at you and say, oh, okay, so you are fulul. You know, fulul, the word fulul means you are part of the old regime and the repressive regime and so on. So it's not the case at all. What I'm doing is actually outside of all parties, outside of all political parties. I'm not a member of any political party, not in Canada as a Canadian and not in Egypt as an Egyptian. What I am trying to do is to create a lobby. And lobbying not against someone or against a group, but for secularization. So how would I lobby? The thing that I know what to do is to teach and to talk to people, and this is what I have done when I went to Egypt. I'm talking from basically based on my complete experience, right? Given a lot of conferences, went to villages, went to cities like Aswan or Luxor, big cities I mean, or Mansoura, or small villages and so on, with a group of people, just to define what is secularization and why are we calling for secularization. What is a civil state? Especially in a situation where we are trapped as Egyptians between the military, which is definitely against the idea of civil, and the religious groups, which are moderate, a little moderate when we compare to others. When we compare to the Salafists or the fundamentalists, you will look at the Muslim Brothers as moderate, although we all know their history of violence as well. So in here, we are trapped, or the Egyptians are trapped, and they feel they are trapped between those two entities here. Entities working against their revolution. And I will give you an example of how they both collaborate against the demands of the people in the streets. On top of those demands too, one is the raise of the wages. This is something that we don't hear about very often in Western media. So the people are in the streets not because they want to redefine their country, not because they want to say, oh, Egypt now is secular or Islamist. It doesn't, this is not the major point. The major point are much more concrete elements. One of which is the minimum wages should be raised to £1,200, which is almost $200 minimum wage. This is not the case now. Nobody, for 10 months up till today, nobody in the government, and we have seen many governments coming under the military council, nobody is giving this demand of the population any attention. And the second is to stop military trials. Under Mubarak, Egyptians for 30 years had 2,000 military trials. For 30 years, only 2,000 recorded military trials. Since the military council took over the country, we had 12,000 military trials, which means that if you go out in the street to demonstrate or to participate in a sit-in, you're facing a military trial, and lots of people are now in prison. So what we are seeing, the Egyptians feel that they have been betrayed in many ways, and this is why they keep going out in the streets. Unfortunately, I have 2 minutes, so unfortunately, this trap in which people find themselves now seems to be decided by upper powers, and it's very important also to link it a little bit to the geopolitics of the region and so on, but I don't have much time to talk about this. The most important thing in my concrete experience as an intellectual is to tell you that I'm not alone. There is a lot of other intellectuals, writers, artists in the streets participating, and this is a very important awakening for Egyptian intellectuals in general, because for many years they were ostracized, they were not allowed the liberty to speak and so on, and all of a sudden they are participating now. Each one of them, like me, for instance, coming from the cinema milieu and the literary milieu and so on, all of a sudden I feel like I can be involved in one way or another, and this is the situation of hundreds others. Those hundreds, at one point, they signed a petition. And this is also to bring you back to how it started, Dawla Madaniya. We signed a petition. I wrote it in Arabic, and then tens of hundreds signed it, to call for the change of Article number 2 in the Constitution of Egypt. And this article stipulates that the Sharia, the Islamic law, is the major source of legislation. So this is what people are fighting for. Not the only thing, because unemployment or underemployment and inequality and all the problems that Basma mentioned are factual. So we're fighting also in those battles. But one of the battles I am hoping to bring even my Canadian experience in is the battle for a change of the Article number 2 of the Constitution, at least by erasing from this article the Islamic law. Thank you so much.